Hello, dear students, and welcome to i-nastava. This is an English lesson for the first grade of high school. Our topic today is well-being, tips and tricks. My name is Livija Pribanić, and I will be your teacher in this lesson. As this topic is really important in our everyday lives, we will spend some time reflecting and critically rethinking our own habits and lifestyle. Before we start with our tasks and activities, please prepare your notebook and a pen or pencil. Don't forget, you can pause the video lesson at any point. Are you ready? Let's start.
Are you ready for our tips and tricks by an expert? Let's see. Do you remember the quote from the previous lesson? It had to do with health and body and mind. Can you remember it? The quote said, "The secret of health for both mind and body is not to mourn for the past, worry about the future, or anticipate troubles, but to live in the present moment wisely and earnestly." Remember that? So we talked about living in the present moment, feeling well. Do you remember the questionnaire? Please check your answers. Do you remember the time period was 2 weeks only? Try to remember how you marked each of the answers and how does that create the whole picture of your well-being. Let's hear what an expert has to say. Please listen to our guest speaker and take notes. There is a tip for you. When taking notes, write keywords only. Don't try to write down full sentences. However, you can always stop the video and re-watch the part that you missed. Have fun.
Hi, I'm Dina, and I'm going to talk about well-being as a psychologist. So how do we estimate well-being? We usually ask several questions about your mood, about your emotional life. So we can ask you, how are you feeling in general? Of course, no one can be happy all the time, and no one can have only positive emotions. Sometimes you can experience some negative emotions, such as anxiety, sadness, fear, and similar, when you have to deal with some minor issues or problems in your life. Then we can ask you, how do you relate or how do you get along with your friends and your family members? Of course, we can ask you about your experiences in school. Do you like your teacher, and do you have any issues with your classmates, and do you have any problems with learning? And finally, we can ask you, what do you think about yourself? How do you feel about yourself? Do you like the person that you become? According to the answers of those questions, we might say, do you performing or feeling well or not? Then we can see, do you have any problems or issues that you should contact your psychologist about. If you are having negative emotions, or if you're in negative mood for 2 weeks in a row, then that will be the time to ask your school teacher or to contact your school psychologist about your mood. What psychology say about people who are experiencing great well-being or who are not performing well? Well, usually people who are doing well, who have high sense of well-being, they usually have high sense of autonomy. That is the desire to make important decisions of one's own life and to act accordingly. That does not mean that we should do whatever we like. Sometimes when we need to make some decisions, it will be good to listen advices from the others. But at the end, it is important that you are a person who will make the final decisions about your life. People who do that usually feel very well. Also, the second characteristic of happy people or people who are performing well is the sense of competence. People who are ready to learn, to develop their skills and knowledge, usually perform very well. And the third characteristic of people who are experiencing a high well-being is the sense of relatedness. They have strong will to interact with, to be connected, and to experience caring for the others. Now, something about what causes or what is related to happiness. 50% of our happiness or well-being is related to our genetic factors, something that we inherit from our parents, and it is out of our control. 10% of our happiness and well-being depends on the life circumstances, such as income, social status, the place where we are living, and similar. And in addition, the good news is that 40% of our happiness depends on our actions and our decisions. We can choose what we will be doing in that matter. We can increase our well-being and our happiness. These are some of the activities that you can do in order to improve your well-being. Those are such as socializing or spending time with your friends, doing some sports, arts, or maybe volunteer somewhere. You can also have some activities like reading books or making some hobbies and traveling around the world, or at least on some places that you haven't seen before. Of course, in order to increase your psychological well-being, it is important to keep eye on our physical well-being or physical health. In order to improve our physical health or our status, it will be important to have healthy eating habits and sleep well. So I hope you're doing something of these things on the list. If not, I hope that you will start doing at least one of them. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for listening and stay safe.
Let us compare our notes. Our guest speaker is a psychologist. At the beginning of his talk, he said that psychologists ask questions. These questions are related to mood, relationship with other people, also questions about school, and finally, how we see ourselves. He mentioned happy people. A very interesting fact from his presentation that I remembered is that 50% of happiness is out of our control, but we can choose. 40% of our happiness is based on our choices and decisions. At the end of his presentation, he mentioned several tips how to improve our well-being. He said, socialize, do sports, be creative, read, eat healthy, and sleep well. I find his last tip very useful for you, my dear teenagers. Why? Because very often you don't sleep well, or you don't sleep enough, or maybe you sleep too much. Let's check it out. Here is a link to a very useful and interesting text on sleeping tips for teenagers. I would like you to read that text very carefully. Even though it is meant for parents, you will find it very useful. Read the text carefully because there is an assignment after reading. You can choose whether you will stop the video lesson now, read the text and come back, or you will watch the lesson until the end. And here is your assignment. Keep a sleeping diary for a week. Write down data for every day. Which advice did you follow and how many hours of sleep did you have? Please keep the diary because later on in this unit, we will come back to your diary and your data. Have fun! On the post-it here in the corner are the tips from our expert. Let's turn them into pieces of advice. In English, when we advise somebody or when we give somebody a piece of advice, we use modal verb should. Modal verb should, as all the other modal verbs in English, has no S in third person singular and is followed by the infinitive, without to, however. Here is the example sentence. You should exercise more. I believe this is a very simple exercise for you as well, and I'm sure you have already mentioned this with your teachers in your classrooms. Now use the tips written in the corner and turn them into pieces of advice. Be very careful of the word order in the sentence, and also you can add any other words you like. You can pause the lesson now. Let us check together. Here are our pieces of advice. You should socialize as often as possible. You should do sports regularly. You should try to be creative. You should read an interesting book. You should eat healthy every day. You should get enough sleep every day. Are your sentences correct? Well done. We have our pieces of advice ready. We know from the previous lesson that it is important to make small steps, to make small changes, to improve our well-being and to feel better. I am sure by now you have made a decision to turn these pieces of advice into a plan. I hope you have made a decision that it is time for a change. In English, when we want to express future intentions, we use going to plus infinitive. For example, I am going to drink more water. I am going to take up jogging. Now use this construction to make your plan. This is your second assignment, your action plan. Please make a plan for a week and try to follow it. You can add notes to your sleeping diary if you don't want to make an extra plan. You can use any template you like. You can write it in your notebook or you can make it in an online version which you will later send to your teacher. Don't forget, keeping your sleeping diary and making your action plan is something we will need further in this topic. With this assignment, we have come to the end of this lesson. It's time for self-check. Please read these 3 statements carefully and tick if you feel okay about it. I can talk about well-being, I can give advice, and I can express future intentions. If you are not sure about any of these statements, please watch the video lesson again.
Thank you for being with us in yet another English lesson. Until the next time, bye everybody.